Thank you. As Ashley said, thank you for that introduction, Ashley. My name is Alex Rydell, and I'm a funeral director. The piece I just played for you is called Ashokan Farewell, and it is a piece that I've played on violin at over 100 funeral services in the last 12 years. Mostly by request, families will ask for that, and the more I seem to play it, the more families seem to ask that it be played at the service. And there's a reason I think that happens, and I think the reason for that is when people come to a funeral, there's a loss that they're there to share in, an end. A life has ended. And what that piece does, and what the violin, I think, does, and music in general, is it gives an opportunity for people to breathe and to reflect and to sit back and think about things. And I am so honored to be able to offer that to families and to do that. And it's one of my favorite pieces. And when they asked me to speak today, I thought, I think that needs to be a part of it because it's just such a special thing that I love giving to the families that I work with. And so I'm honored to be able to do that. And I'm honored to be able to be with you today. So as a funeral director or an undertaker, you saw the title I had there, Undertaking the End. And I think the word undertaker is an old term that was used for funeral directors, but I think it still holds true for us today. It's an undertaking. It's a great undertaking of an end. There's a loss. Someone has died, and so it's a grave undertaking that we are doing in caring for the dead. The poet and funeral director Thomas Lynch says that a good funeral gets the dead where they're going and the living where they need to be. And I feel that's true. I feel that my job as an undertaker is twofold. It's to take care of the person who died, whether that and their body. So whether that is kind of in your traditional casket at a church or at the funeral home or cremated, regardless of that, we're taking care of that person who died. And then the other part of our job is to walk the family through the process of caring for their and remembering their loved one who has died. Funerals are a transformative time for people. They are transforming into a time when they physically are not going to have their loved one with them anymore. Recently, it was about 2 weeks ago, I was talking to a friend of mine. And we hadn't spoken in quite a while, but she said, Alex, I've been meaning to write you a letter for the last 7 years and tell you something. You see, about 7 years ago is when I had the funeral for her father who had died. And her father was also a friend of mine. And he had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and it ravaged his body. He went through all the chemotherapy treatments and radiation and tried everything that they could to heal him. And through all those treatments and the things that cancer did to his body, it was a shell of who he was in the end, unfortunately. And what she told me was that it was so hard for her to see him go through that process and losing him. But what she wanted to write me a letter about was how grateful she was that we were able to give him back to her for an opportunity to say goodbye. You see, what we were able to do is we were able to bring somewhat of him back. We were able to get him to look a little bit more like he used to look. He had his favorite, I will never forget, he had his favorite t-shirt on the night of the visitation. It was of a band that he loved. And then he had a beautiful suit on the next day, which is not typical, but we did it because that was what they desired. And I will never forget that. I will never forget that moment. And what she said to me was, it was so powerful to her to have that opportunity to reflect and say goodbye to him and finally feel like she had him again. And I think that is the transformative power of funerals. And what I want to just talk to you about today is why we have meaningful funeral experiences, why it's important to do that, regardless of what they end up looking like. I think it's an opportunity to be creative and to find out what it is about that person's life that we can use to to create a meaningful funeral experience for the people, the family that is left behind. So I wasn't born determined to be a funeral director. And I don't know that many people are. I wasn't born into this profession either. I'm a child of two nurses. My parents are both wonderful caregivers. And so I had that as a role model as I was growing up. But what I did, I gotta go back here, sorry. Must have clicked. Oh, okay. So when I was growing up, I played violin. I started playing violin when I was 5, and and music was always a huge part of my life. When I went to college at St. Olaf, I was a music major, and I decided I'm going to be a professional musician. That was my goal in life. But as soon as I got there, I pretty quickly realized that I was in the wrong direction. I wanted music to certainly be a part of my life, but I didn't want it to make a living. And so it was on our orchestra tour that year in Loveland, Colorado. I stayed with the Vignette family, who both the husband and wife were funeral directors. And I started talking with them about the work that my dad does in hospice. My dad was the director of patient services for hospice of the Red River Valley. And so I was very familiar with end-of-life care and what he did with that. And I started talking with them about funeral service. And they were talking to me about how passionate they were about caring for families and caring for the people who have died and helping them to create meaningful experiences. And it was that night that I realized this is what I need to be doing. That was the spark, and I came back and I shadowed John Runsvold, who owns the funeral home that I work for now. And that was the start of it. That was me entering into funeral service, and 4 years later, I was a licensed funeral director. Thomas Lynch quote, "There's no easy way to do this, so do it right. Weep, laugh, watch, pray, love, live. Give thanks and praise. Comfort, mend, honor, and remember." And what he's talking about is funeral services. He's talking about engaging and leaning into that vulnerability, that vulnerable experience that we're a part of. And I think that's just so prominent, and it's something that I'm passionate about, is expressing to families and helping them lean in and helping them to understand that it's okay to feel sad, and it's okay to laugh, and it's okay to celebrate. Funerals have happened since the beginning of time. I love this picture. It's an old picture from the early 1900s in Norway, and it's of a family that's grieving the loss, and they're standing around a casket as it's about to be buried. But it just helped me to show you a visualization of the ancient traditions and the basic essentials that have always been a part of funeral service. 60,000 BC is the earliest time that they have found evidence of burial rituals. They've found a Neanderthal burial site where there were antlers and decayed flowers adorning the body that they were able to find. That's 60,000 BC. So that goes to show that there have always been rituals and traditions surrounding the loss of a loved one, the death. And so what I would like to say is that those essential elements of after a person has died, after an end, have always remained the same. But what we're seeing now is that we're able to enhance that with creative thinking and thinking outside the box in different ways. How can we create an even more meaningful experience, a more impactful experience for people? So there's several different ways that we can do that, and with technology and with our growing, just the way society has progressed, we've realized that we need to make this more about the person. 50 years ago, if you went back and you went to a funeral home, it would be a very different experience from when you're walking into a funeral home today. There was oftentimes a room full of caskets, and you would pick the casket, and that would be it. That you would have funeral A or funeral B, and it would be liturgy and certain things like that would take place in the church, and that would be the funeral. But what we're realizing is that personalization, making it about the person and about the family, is a much more healing experience for families when we can give them that opportunity. So what I like to do when I'm visiting with families is I like to invite them into that creative space. I like to find out not only about the person who died, but then I like to invite them to start thinking outside the box for themselves and what it is that they can do to perhaps take an active role in remembering their loved one and being a part of that funeral experience. Things like creating a vignette that has meaningful pieces of that person's life. If Grandpa was a golfer, let's have some of his golf clubs there, maybe some balls that people can hit with the golf club. Grandma's a quilter, so let's bring her quilts in, or let's create something. Let's create some things that we can give away as keepsakes to the people who are coming, whose life that she impacted. There's all kinds of different ways that we can create and do that. With technology, we've been able to enhance it even further. We're able to now put together a video tribute where families can give us photos and videos of the person who died, and within a matter of hours we can create an amazing professional quality video that is so meaningful, and it's a meaningful keepsake for families to take with them. So that's a great way that we can honor and remember that person's life. We also have embraced technology in ways that can just creatively problem solve. So we're more distant of a culture now. People move and people live all over the world, and so sometimes it's not uncommon that people can't make it to the funeral service because they just don't live close enough and they're not able to do that. And so what we do is we can now very easily live stream funeral services directly to our website. And so it's easier now than it ever was before to engage everyone that this person has touched and allow them to be a part of that experience so that they're able to do that. We've also embraced technology in the way that we work with families. We saw that, as I said, as being a more distant culture, people are around the world and may not be able to travel as easily as they could at one point. And so we now utilize a collaboration center where we can invite all of the family on a web-based platform into our system, and we can collaborate with them, and they can collaborate with each other on all of the funeral arrangements. It not only has resources and documents for them, but it has chat rooms for us where we can be working with the different family members on different ideas for the service. It's a beautiful thing, and families most of the time embrace it. Certain ones that are in the older generations, it's probably not the best fit, but for the most part, to have this accessible is an amazing thing that we're happy to be able to offer. Alan Wolfelt, who is a specialist on grief and mourning, writes, "When everyday words and actions are inadequate, the ritual of ceremony provides a needed structure of what to say and do." And I think that there's ways that we can be creative. We like to have celebrations of life now, but I also think that it's important for us to mourn. I think it's important for us to acknowledge that though we're happy that that person is no longer suffering, perhaps, it's okay to feel sad, and it's important. It's important to go through those feelings that we have. And ritual is a way to do that. When words, oftentimes, when someone we love has lost, we don't know the words to say, or if a friend has lost someone, we don't know the exact words to say other than "I'm sorry." But sometimes just being there and being a shoulder to cry on and showing up to a ceremony is a way of showing love and respect to that person. On February 12th of 2016, I got a call that no funeral director, or anyone for that matter, wants to get, and that was that one of our local heroes, a police officer, had died and was gunned down by a person and shot and killed in the line of duty as he was protecting our community. Though it was a call I never wanted to receive, it was an opportunity to step in and help walk that family and help the community walk through a process that was daunting. It was awful. But we had to remember him, and we had to honor what he had done for us and what he had done for them and the community. It was one of the most beautiful displays of honor and respect that I have ever seen. Thousands of people filled the Shields Arena to remember and honor his life. And why I wanted to show you that today was to say that funeral services and the funeral experience are still important. Having celebrations and gathering together as a community is more important now than ever. Because when a person we love has touched our lives so much, we need to gather and remember their life when they're gone. That's an important thing to do, and that goes to show that it's still an important thing today more than ever. Brene Brown is an author, and I just wanted to share this. The collective pain and sometimes joy we experience when gathering in any way to celebrate the end of a life is perhaps one of the most powerful experiences of inextricable connection. Death, loss, and grief are the great equalizers. And that's what brings us together at that time, and that's why I think it's important to tap into our creative selves and encourage each other to lean into that discomfort that happens when someone dies, and feel it, be vulnerable, allow ourselves to move through that, move forward. What I just want to leave you with is encouragement to embrace the opportunity that an end has. Whenever we're all bound to experience an end at some point, and what I would just encourage you to do is embrace that and lean in when the time does come. Because the opportunities that an end has to offer are endless. And I think that we will make society a better place for doing so. Thanks.